I
What do you mean there's something wrong with
I
it?
admire a lot of the things you do. When I see that space rocket come down and land on the landing pad, I'm like, God damn, the future's here. This is just amazing. I figured I was going to see this when I was about 30, but here we are 50 years later, and it's just now coming. I was expecting flying cars. That's how I grew up. You're younger than me, but I grew up with that expectation. We're going to have rocket packs, flying cars, teleportation, whatever. It was all going to happen in my lifetime, which is clearly insane, but I was 12. So what do I know? But here's this rocket that comes back to Earth and gently lands on the landing pad, and they fill it up with gas again, and off it goes. I'm like, God, this is really the future. No kidding around. So I admire all that part of it. Why he bought Twitter, I'll never understand. Well, he used other people's money, which is always the right way to buy something.
Well, it's a lot of data. And for the 4 people that are watching, voyeuring us, if you don't like what we're talking about, then ask a question. If not, we're going to.
That's right. We're here to talk about neurofeedback, brain training, all kinds of good stuff. Where is everybody? I know Joy told me she probably could not attend today. But
Dr. Hill said the same thing. It was a rough. I think they're all early voting.
Oh, that's it. Or they're still celebrating the Dodgers, I guess, maybe out here. Sorry about the Cubs, pal. How far out of the playoffs were the Cubs?
No idea. All I know is they won in 2016, and that's all I need to. That's all I need to know.
That's all you need for the rest of your life. I'm here. In LA, we have a higher bar in LA. If we don't win the whole thing, we're unhappy. Going to the World Series is not enough. We have to win the thing.
You definitely spent a lot of money on it.
Good. Oh my Lord, did we ever? But this, we'll talk about neurofeedback at some point. But this guy Ohtani, I don't follow baseball. I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Oh, he's the best player of all time.
My God Almighty! Somebody he hammered in he hammered in a run or whatever it was, a home run, and somebody said, "Guys, step back for a second. This guy is a pitcher." Just went, oh my God, you're right. You forget. He looks like a corn-fed. You put a different head on him. He looks like some corn-fed guy from Iowa. He's a big strapping fella, and he blasts these things out of the park. And I'm like, that's right. He's a pitcher. How could this happen?
So John and Anthony's coming back, but I think the whole show's yours, man.
Oh my God! Oh my Lord! I'm unprepared for this, and I'm gonna probably have to leave in about a half an hour. As soon as my client, it'll just be you and Anthony. So Mari's not showing up. Jay's not showing up.
Who knows?
Oh, who knows? Yeah, good point. Yeah, fair point.
It's like, it's a busy day at the bar. It's not.
Exactly. I sent Santiago, and I know he wants to chime in on this at some point. I sent him a very extensive review of neurofeedback for sports performance. I know that's his bailiwick. Yeah. So he said, give me some time. I need to read this because it's a very extensive article with lots of scientific article with lots of references about different techniques applicable to very specific sports. If you want to train a baseball player, you do this. If you want to train a football player, you do this. It's way over my head, but he's the man. So I'm hoping he'll bring that to us at some future date.
Well, since we don't have anybody going here, I just saw this woke doc refused to publish 10 million trans kids study that showed puberty blockers didn't help mental health. Is that a non-starter? Oh wait, here's Dr. Marie to save us.
Can't hear you.
A little louder.
Different glasses help.
We're going to do a GoFundMe to get Dr. Marie a new laptop.
I invested in a mic. Woo!
Hey, there you go. Got your Rode, baby. There you go.
Yeah, going pro.
So I understand. And maybe this is something that we don't want to discuss right now. There was some poke about neurologists. Is this a topic we want to talk about?
Absolutely.
Anthony? Can't hear you.
Unmute, Anthony. It's like our first show.
Yeah, first show. Two people come on unmuted.
Yeah, John was on the email between me and Mari. Basically, just last episode, I said I was concerned when I hear neurofeedback providers referring to a doctor of any kind, or even being told to, and not being told what they're even supposed to expect. So, for instance, she was referring somebody to a neurologist for subclinical epileptic discharges. Neurologists they are not trained to look for those. If they look for that, that is, as I understand it, and I know some neurologists, that is not part of their training. Later in the talk, Jay's conference, she said she sent someone to a neurologist for microbiome issues. I promise you.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. I think I resonated with your email going, what? That's crazy.
But as far as I understand, John, they don't look for mental health issues in the EEG either. So a subclinical epileptic discharge, it is not commonly treated. Now, it is being treated in clinical trials. And so something a neurofeedback practitioner could do would maybe say, hey, show your neurologist this clinical trial that's going on for lamictal, lamotrigine, for subconvulsant,
right,
used in autism. That would be, and she even said I could have done that, but she said, yeah, it went horribly and lost the family's trust, and the neurologist said there was nothing to see here. So,
well, my other point though here,
not educated. Go
interesting that you bring that up, because I have this exact case presentation happening right now. We did a 10-minute recording. We saw an 8-second something. I can't say what it is. My recommendation to the parents was get them to a pediatric neurologist.
Okay.
The kid's diagnosed on the spectrum. You know, I understand what we're looking at, and what I'm looking for. Yes, like a Jay probably would say the same thing. You know, a Lamictal, a Keppra, low dose. Let's try to manage this while neurofeedback does its magical work. But point being is, to your point, is this neurologist going to say there's nothing to see here? I hope not.
Common wisdom.
Well,
this is what we talk about.
Is where I want to jump in. I want to jump in because I think we're missing an absolute key point. We're talking about scope of practice. Okay.
Yeah, that is my point.
And
yes.
It's not, one of the things I'm very, very concerned about, and I'd say a major flaw in our discipline, is criticizing other disciplines for not knowing. Now, yes, there's a valid component of this in terms of getting up to speed in terms of what qualified neurotherapists do. But it doesn't mean a neurologist is unqualified if they don't do what a qualified neurotherapist does. I think this is about scope of practice. Right. They do not look at the EEG the way we look at the EEG, and nor should they be expected to unless they join our camp. Now, where this gets even more convoluted is, I would say, whether it's ethics boards or legal considerations, et cetera, they want neurotherapists or other professionals to check things with a neurologist.
Right.
They're asking you to refer or to get your work checked by somebody who is out of scope. That's not the fault of the neurologist. That's a massive point of ignorance, which I think we all need to address and be softer about. A massive point of naivety to address this, because if 100%. We're looking at different, everybody knows about that lovely joke about the elephant. Are you looking at the tusks? Oh well, this animal or this thing is a spear versus the tail, it's a rope. No, you're dealing with an elephant, and they're different components. So in the elephant of a person, you need a neurologist potentially to look at one part, you need a neurotherapist to look at another, you need a gastroenterologist. I mean, everybody knows where I'm going, but we have to stop the bashing.
I don't know what Anthony.
I know you agree with me, John.
I do, and I don't think Anthony was intentionally bashing. Here's my dilemma.
No, Anthony's. We're all on the same side.
Here's my dilemma. So I refer this kid to a pediatric neurologist. I'm not sure if this person will be a pediatric specialist or just a plain neurologist. I'm not sure. So he goes to this neurologist. They do whatever recordings they do. They find or they don't find. I've got a piece of data. I can show it to him in an EDF file. It's there. It's 8 seconds long. It's not nothing. It's got phase. I mean, it's the real thing. Yeah. Is the neurologist, out of fear of their own quote unquote scope of practice, not going to be able to provide what I'm not a professional. I'm not counseling anybody to consider anything I'm saying as being professional advice, to take a low dose of Lamictal. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out where to go in this conversation. I understand that most neurologists, if they don't see a full-on seizure, are probably not going to recommend a medication.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in saying that? So where
No,
are
you're
we?
pointing out the dilemma. I mean, it's the same type of thing. Like, let's just take it down a level so that many of the viewers can really follow us. When you have a child who comes in diagnosed with ADHD, and they're on a stimulant, we look at the EEG and go, whoa, this is making it worse.
Right.
And we say, look at the EEG. Now, if you go back to the individual prescribing that, the EEG is mud. Well, it's not mud. They have not been schooled, and this is not an insult. They're not schooled in learning, in reading it. So yeah, I think we need some cross-pollination. I mean, one of the things I'm always banging my drum on is we need more professionals that have parallel or complementary competence in EEG. I think this is where we should all go, so that when we do refer to individuals for whatever reason, whether it's for ethics or legal or our own limitations of scope of practice, that we're all looking at the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
and as Ben says, always check with your primary care physician first. This is for entertainment and informational purposes only. And thank you very much, my friend.
Do not consider any of this as direct medical advice. No, and this kid is on Ritalin at the same time. So I'm left with the incredibly frustrating position of how do I teach a neurologist to understand what I think I know? And again, I'm not an expert in this. How do I convince them that this is something they should step outside their normal framework and consider? Advising this kid not be on Ritalin and probably on an anticonvulsant. That would be my thoughtful outcome, but I can't say that. I'm not a medical professional.
It is a dilemma, and I want to. You guys have it right. My goal there was not to criticize doctors, and in fact, I think I've said on here before. I talked to a young psychiatrist that's going through residency. I was telling him about EEG phenotyping for ADHD, Jay's paper. They can arrive at some of the same conclusions. We feel this patient would have done better on this medication. And I look at Jay's paper and it's the same thing. They're just using symptoms instead of EEG. So they can be good. And I'll tell you, a lot of them are actually open. The ones that I meet, when I tell them about neurofeedback, they're actually very open to it. I even have an MD from this try to, but this comes down to, I think, and this is an MD told me this, a close friend. He said, our system is not set up to optimize your health. It is not set up. It really is set up around acute, fixing things that are life-threatening and fixing things that can be treated with a medication.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to say that's their fault. That is what they are trained. And that maybe is the most pressing need in people's lives. We're trying to maybe do a little better than that. Yeah.
I mean, the drugs work as intended.
Yeah. It's funny. I came across a study on Twitter recently, and it was about the headline was when people go to grad school for anything, mental health conditions worsen, they go up, depression, anxiety goes up, and also psychiatric drug use goes up, unfortunately, I guess, let's say. But the one group that psychiatric drug use did not go up for? Doctors. People that go to medical school, at least in this study, there was no increased incidence of. So the point of it is doctors are sane. So I find they're actually, but I'm sure it depends how you come at them, John. Like, I can't just show up and say, well, so everything you guys do is wrong. I'm exaggerating, but EEG is what's primary. And I don't know what you're talking about. It's maybe you say there's probably infinite examples, but like, I have a guy telling me that my EEG shows this, and they're doing a trial of this, and would you be open to that? That has worked better for me and for friends. So
I mean, the one thing first of all, we have to make really clear, Anthony, you were not bashing. You were just showing an instance of where things were going wrong, and we were showing the ignorance of our discipline, neurotherapy or neurofeedback, and the ignorance of neurology combined. that's a pretty bad storm.
Yeah, we're not talking to each other enough.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, my other point is, let's pick any language. We're speaking Greek, okay?
Yep.
And we're being told, well, you have to show this to somebody who's speaking German. And we're like, okay. And we go to people speaking German and say, well, read the Greek. And they read the German. They don't read the Greek, so yeah.
How do we, for benefit of listeners who are struggling with whatever they're struggling with, looking to us to try to find solutions, how do we promulgate a better cross-referencing of our individual expertise, as if that's a word, expertise?
Yeah.
How do we, do we show up at conferences? I mean, it's just like, you can't, well, I mean, but you can't barge your way into the neurology conference.
Well, yes, but I also think we have to, in terms of who we try and recruit to our conferences, et cetera, we don't, okay, here I'm going to get myself into trouble. You don't recruit somebody who's interested, oh God, I don't know how to say this without
just say it. Yeah. Pete will edit it if it's horrible.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, okay. We have too many people that do not have a base education, okay? And they're studying something that's really kind of interesting and can have some crossover. Like, for example, somebody who studies meditation. There's nothing wrong with studying meditation, but then you have a meditation expert doing neurotherapy, okay?
Yeah.
And how does neurology go in there? How do we talk about seizure disorders? How do we talk about, all of these things? Versus if we attract more individuals, for example, a psychiatrist who works in prescription or the prescribing of medicine, if we attract a neurologist who has so much complementary competence, and just teach them or have them open to be learning how to read the EEG for symptoms. Wow. Yeah. But we're not attracting those people. And now, again, there's nothing wrong with, per se, the people that we're attracting, except the notion of out of scope. So we're all back to out of scope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a tendency, Dr. Mari, that so neurofeedback is a bit alternative. We kind of come out of the shadows almost a little bit,
and that's what I hate. It's I think it's experimental in the true sense of the word, meaning we have some insufficient quote unquote evidence base, and we're building it. And experimental doesn't mean you're just trying things. It means that you have a rationale for looking at something and doing something with informed consent, where you do your risk benefit analysis, et cetera, and you build a body of knowledge. And that's not the way, and the reason why it's alternative is because of the way it's being approached. It's not being approached in a quote unquote scientific manner. It's being approached in an alternative manner without the regulation, et cetera.
Can't you sort of make that same observation about most of medicine? Brain surgery.
No, John, because it's sanctioned.
In other words, there's a basis of sort of understanding of how you would do a heart surgery. Now, some doctor someplace says, "I think I got a better way to do this." That's his experiment. Now, he may kill the patient, by the way, in the attempt. That happens. That's not his goal, obviously. His goal is to improve the procedure to have a better outcome. That's experimental medicine. But it's built on a foundation that is understandable. So is neurofeedback. I don't think we have anything to be shy about.
The other thing is that's also being done in sanctioned environments. So, for example, in university settings. And I would be overjoyed. We need to get more of the EEG work, the way we do it, back into university settings. Yeah. So I think we all kind of agree with each other. We're just coming at it from slightly different angles. And John, you and I originally, tackled this out a little bit in terms of why individuals are attracted and how they start their practice. And I would say, in terms of grandfathering and grandmothering, there is a generation where, yes, that makes a lot of sense. But I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense now. I think times have changed. And in order to get respect, we don't grandfather and grandmother anymore. I think the last time that really occurred in any discipline was in the 1980s.
Marie, hold on, guys. Marie A. Thank you for stopping by, Marie. Go ahead, John.
I was just looking at this because I think she and I probably attended the same presentation the other day.
Wow.
Because this is something I just heard about.
What is it?
I think it is public. This is public knowledge that Medicare has upgraded neurofeedback from investigational to not medically necessary.
And that's an upgrade.
That's a huge upgrade.
Okay.
You got to translate that.
Okay, but this is from an insurance perspective. In other words, it's now incumbent upon the insurance company, when they say it's not medically necessary, to defend the decision to not use neurofeedback for that particular patient and reimburse for that service for that particular person as not being medically necessary. They could always blow it off as investigational. You had no idea. Now you, as the patient, can then appeal that decision.
See, thank you for translating the Greek to German. Insurance language.
Yeah, this is all about insurance at the end of the day. But it's a toehold into the reality of if insurance starts to validate that this is arguable whether it's medically necessary, at least that's a huge step up from just, as you pointed out earlier, investigational, experimental. It's just some guys off in a place in Poughkeepsie doing stuff with the brain. We don't know what they do, and we're not asking any questions.
That's not the definition of experimental. And for all our viewers, you need to go back to the scientific definition of experimental. There's a structure to it. Yeah,
and you're right, and to be contrasted with the word investigational, which is very different. Yeah. But that's always been the insurance company's out, that this is investigational, so therefore we don't have to do anything. Now they have to actually put their money where their mouth is.
We have a question from Ben.
Oh, God.
Ben says, are there many insurance companies that pay for neurofeedback in the USA? Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, Ben, I don't know if you're coming from outside the USA, but no, there aren't that many. Evidently, there's some weird quirks. Somebody told me that Medicaid somehow covers neurofeedback occasionally. Not Medicare, but Medicaid. I can't fathom the difference. The reimbursement rates are heinous, as you can imagine. And meaning you are in the United States, Ben, or not?
I am, because I am.
Oh, okay. So I've never taken insurance, so I don't know much about it, unfortunately. But I understand occasionally some people do. Medicare 1 equals Medicaid is the first true. Yeah. No, Medicare and Medicaid are two different things. Yeah. Medicare is the federal program. Medicaid is a federal program, and each state has its own version. Some states do not have Medicaid at all.
Well, isn't it that Medicare is something everyone qualifies for after, I think, 65, and Medicaid is like an income dependent, or if you're a young mother, I think.
I think it's fully income dependence for folks.
And Medicare is much larger. Medicare is like 30% of the federal budget.
I'm going to bop along with Pete. Something I don't know.
I'm on Medicare. It's the best insurance ever.
Or how long have you? Well, you're from Canada, Dr. Mari. Yeah. How long have you been away from Canada, if I could ask?
Away?
No, she's still there.
I thought you were in Sweden for a while. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, I go all over the place. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be in the UK giving a talk. So, yeah.
And I take it you guys don't cover, Canada does not cover neurofeedback, I imagine.
Sure. Yeah. It depends on who is delivering it.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would be qualified or covered.
Yep. Yeah, there's a reason why I'm preaching this. And I kind of... I don't know. I mean, to launch it out there in terms of, I wish Joy was on, because she really knows. She can shoot me down with accuracy. But, in terms of, if an EEG can be used for assessment purposes, not diagnostic purposes, but there are many professionals where you can bill for an assessment. It doesn't matter what assessment it is.
Yeah.
It's you're billing for the service, not the name of, no, I'm trying to give a good example, but it's not the ADHD scale. You're not billing for delivering the ADHD scale. You're billing for an assessment of ADHD, and however you do that is completely up to you.
Yeah.
So
No,
I think there's a beautiful, they're not gray areas, they're competence areas, that it's presumed that you have the competence to select the right form of assessment if you have this degree or this registration.
But the neurofeedback itself is or is not covered there in Canada.
Sure it is. I mean, our car accident insurance. So if you're in a car accident, there's the company within the province that I work, that they will pay for neurofeedback treatment if it's provided by a registered clinical counselor or a registered psychologist. It's covered.
Okay.
You bet.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, the vets are covered. The vets are using it. PTSD. That we know, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Which is interesting because if it's
but the
supported by the military,
the VA doesn't cover it.
No.
Gosh.
There's a facility. No, there's a facility here in Los Angeles.
Our VA up here does. Now it's not on an individual basis, but they cover it up here.
Again, you guys are way ahead of us. There's a facility here in Los Angeles that does neurofeedback for veterans, and it's privately funded because the VA does not cover it. They cover medications and exposure therapy.
Well, I think you need different topics for your elections.
I got one here.
You think? Not the work at McDonald's isn't important?
Is Trump derangement syndrome real?
For me, it's totally real.
I know it's for you, but I mean, mentally, is it? Oh, wait, okay. Maria saved the VA will cover if you are registered as a provider in U.S. I think TRICARE.
TRICARE does have some odd cover. In fairness, Maria, I'm not an insurance person, so I really don't know all the answers, ins and outs of this. But generally speaking, I'm told it's not well covered by any kind of insurance in the United States. Neurofeedback writ large.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that it comes up so often speaks to it.
The only way I saw it covered is if you are a licensed clinician and you use it in addition to your talk therapy, instead of playing cards with somebody who use neurofeedback, they'll cover it.
Marie A says yes, the VA will cover if you are registered as a provider in the U.S. I think TRICARE. So
yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Talabo, greetings, lady and gentleman.
Hey, Talabo.
There's only one gentleman here. I know you're not from around here, Talabo.
Which one is the gentleman?
I think it's definitely Anthony. It's not me.
Oh, it's definitely Anthony.
Okay, we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement. Well, anyway, it was a presentation on the current state of, the process of trying to get this ISNR APB hosted a webinar on it, trying to just lay out what's happened in the past. Where are we? It's in process. It's been going on for years. We're going to Mark Trollinger's, I guess, the head of this. Leslie Sherlin's on the panel, a bunch of people and they've been pursuing this for a decade or more. This goes way back, way more than a decade. But it's in process. Talks are ongoing with the AMA, trying to figure this out. And Medicare will be an important component. So as Marie pointed out at the top of the show, that's a huge lift up for neurofeedback, generally speaking, that it's now medically not necessary. It's like, wow, damning by faint praise.
That's a pat on the back right there, my friend.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're not medically necessary.
It's not completely useless. There you go.
I thought legalese were difficult. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. got to be a lawyer to figure this stuff out.
Anthony, what's going on in your technology group, man? All those posts that you put up there. Come on.
Yeah.
Drop us a little
Well,
wisdom.
there was a couple things. So something in England, the UK, to get a little closer to where Mari frequents, in Sweden. The prime minister of the UK has said that they are considering offering free Ozempic to the unemployed to help them become more employable, and it's making all these headlines. Direct quote. So kind of interesting, and the argument they make is that, well, you miss less days of work if you're healthier, and obese individuals seem to miss more work. So there's probably a rationale. Go on.
Well, yeah, but let me be clear then. The manufacturers of Ozempic are donating this medication for free? How fascinating.
Well, as you know,
exactly. Taxpayers are paying for it. It's not free.
Drug companies, so that's interesting.
Well, you know what, though? I'm going to put my little aside here. Given the literature that's starting to come out in terms of addiction and reducing cravings for alcohol, I think you're going to have all the pubs revolt.
No, really.
That's a good point. The
reason why I post a lot of Ozempic articles, and sometimes people in neurofeedback will rib me a little bit, don't you believe in neurofeedback? And one of the reasons I posted though is because I've worked for a nutritionist for 10 years, and it's very hard to meet the clients and to think, gosh, obesity is something that has to involve the brain. Yeah. It is not simply, these people are just undisciplined. These people just lack the character to do what I'm doing, that I'm thin or whoever, I really think Ozempic I think Pete might have even said this, Ozempic proves that there's something going on in the brain very often in people who are having trouble controlling their weight.
Well, Anthony, I just have to interrupt. I agree, but I hate the phraseology. If anybody
Which phrase?
has ever worked with somebody who's morbidly obese, okay? And you get into self-worth and self-esteem, and all this body positivity has been very, very positive, but it also has a real negative in terms of that, we're losing we lost the opportunity to continue a lot of the great work that was being done, in that this does have a brain base, okay? It's the absolute opposite. It's an eating disorder the same way anorexia is, except one person is fading away and the other is burying themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but majority of individuals that I have worked with on a professional level, okay, are not happy in the bodies that they are in, with the consumption level they are at. Okay, now I'm not saying that's universal, okay? And obviously these are individuals that are choosing to go for therapy, so it's not a universal, okay? And I think there was an absolute need for body positivity, because there's nothing worse than shame when you do have a brain issue, okay? So I think in that regard, but in terms of, there are two arguments. Would Ozempic give you the possibility of getting at the primary issues if the cravings go down, right? But John, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, give free Ozempic for, actually, even if they do give it free, not paid by the tax payers. But then at a certain point, the makers of Ozempic are going to say, yeah, aren't we nice? We gave it away for 3 years and now you have to pay for it. And we all know that if you stop the pill, it all comes back. So, everybody knows I go on and on about technology. And in my little region here, they were giving away free iPads to grade 4 and high school students. Oh, how kind was that? How fantastic was that? And then before you know it, within 3 years, you needed an iPad for grade 4 curriculum. So all of these kindnesses, you got to be really careful. As John said, it's either the taxpayer paying for it, or it's kind of like Buckabir in university. You're getting clients for life. It's a loss leader.
There's nothing.
I need a fact checker to see if this is true or not. But Trizipatide, they're suing all the compound pharmacies, or 3 big ones, and that could talk to me, Anthony.
Yeah. So the compounding, a compound pharmacy mixes a drug from raw materials, and the FDA allows a special. and that's cheaper because you're not paying as much markup. The FDA allows this in the U.S. in order to prevent
and you can titrate easier as well.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And because this drug is needed by diabetics, it's not just for people who are although most diabetics are overweight, interestingly, but they need it to control their blood sugar. So that's why they allow this. Now, tirzepatide, a lot of these compounding pharmacies, though, are selling it for the weight loss prescription or usage, and that's where the drug companies make most of their money. And so if we allow this to go unchecked, their argument would be, well, you're essentially saying everyone can copy us and undercut us, and we won't get a share of the profits.
Yeah, it's
and
a patent violation.
At getting these compounding pharmacies shut down, but I'm sure more crop up because I know of some friends that get it from there. So that's the story.
That's interesting. See, I only use a compounding. I only recommend a compounding pharmacy, as Mari's saying, for titration purposes.
Yeah,
you know, you're going to get a 12. Yeah, you're trying to cut tablets in half or dilute things into water. Yeah. It's a nightmare. But you go to a compounding.
No, it's
again for any of the listeners, if you're trying to get off a medication, search out a compounding pharmacy who can create any level of medication that you need for your titration schedule.
To give you an idea, if Ozempic or tirzepatide is charges average of like $880 a month, let's say, off of the all-in costs, no insurance covering you, $880. You can. I have friends getting Ozempic from compounding pharmacies for like $260 a month. So it's a huge discount.
That's a big discount. Well, but again, I step back to the conversation for all of these things, for any medication you want to name, including Ozempic, pick a psychotropic. It doesn't matter. Okay. We're inserting ourselves into biochemical realities in the human brain. I don't think the human brain changed that much in the last 5,000 years that would cause an explosion of obesity. It doesn't make any sense.
Our environment did. I mean, we already know. It's just there's too much fat and sugar around.
Right, but we're calling it a brain-based problem. Like that's some out. Oh, I have a brain problem.
An environment-based problem.
Well, okay, yeah. Let's put the onus on where it is. You have brain. You have difficulty managing your impulsive behaviors. That's a brain-based problem.
I guess that's anterior cingulate, right? If we want to get smart here.
What? Say again?
The switch in the brain, the anterior cingulate, it's a switch problem, right?
There you go. So, but in other words, it could play itself out in food. It could play itself out in gambling, porn, sex. There's 100 ways that this switch can throw you wrong. So, but we're putting ourselves into a chemical reality of interfering somehow to take away the cravings for food. Well, that doesn't, as Mari's saying, it doesn't solve the problem. This person has an underlying brain health issue that is really not being addressed. So are we deluding ourselves by just handing out Ozempic to overweight people on the street?
John, but I mean, that's always, for years, this has been our issue, right? Everybody just wants a pill. And I mean, I guess, Joy could chime in here because I love when she goes, somebody comes in and says, how many sessions?
I know.
16 in so many sessions. But that's the pharmacology model. I just want a pill a day and all my problems go away, right?
Exactly.
So,
but here's the thing. So this is the caveat or retort. Ozempic works. And so we have an issue in the US where 72% of adults are overweight. Yeah. And so you have to ask, they think that obesity decreased in the past year for the first time in like 30 or 40 years.
But will malnutrition change though, Anthony? Right? I mean, here I'm going to, if people only still eat Doritos and McDonald's and whatnot, you're not going to be craving it as much, but I think you're going to have a malnutrition issue on your hands.
Agreed.
So I totally would like people to try to address it with something like neurofeedback where you're training your brain, something. So for instance, Ozempic plateaus, very often the weight loss plateaus. So a drug may not be the perfect, at least yet, we don't have a perfect bullet. But what I would say is, so I work for nutritionists. I think what he would say is the problem may be that we're overnourished. And
so we're overnourished. Overnourished. Yeah. Okay, I said we're overfed and undernourished, so we're overnourished as well.
Yeah, and that's not to say that nutrient deficiencies cannot occur. I know the research says that clinical nutrient deficiencies are rare. So that's a report I've commonly heard. But yes, if a person could address their weight by doing disciplined and healthy diet, a holistic approach. I do prefer that. I know that in our we talk about our modern lifestyle, think people are busy. They work in America. We work more hours than many nations. We're in the top echelon. And we have so many choices and we have so many distractions. So I do think it's a little bit, to John's point, I think it might be a little harder today, and we're more sedentary. So that may be.
My point on the Ozempic thing is we have to be careful, I think, culturally, to talk about the pill for the ill conversation. It's not about Ozempic. I'd love a double. Here's a perfect study. Take two individuals, have one do Ozempic for a year, have the other one do neurofeedback for a year, and see who at the end of the day weighs less.
Yeah. That would be an awesome study.
Yeah. Okay. No. Further,
and then
the follow-up.
Exactly.
That's the follow-up. The follow-up is a 6-month follow-up. 6 months later, see where both people are at.
Yeah.
That's the study that is.
Anthony, you're really good at all this detail. What is the longest trial of Ozempic? Because I've also heard that it plateaus. Is there going to be a wear-off effect?
But it's probably at least a year. And keep in mind that these drugs have been around for like 14 years.
They didn't study Prozac for that long. Why did you think they studied Ozempic for that long?
The STEP trial of Ozempic ran for 104 weeks. It's called STEP. So I'll leave that link for people. So it's so on the one hand, I'm not expecting sort of like drastic side effects from these drugs because they've been used for so long. It's been like 18 years now. In diabetics, they've been used. But on the other, I don't know that this is probably not our endpoint, and we will get better. Oh, I have a story for you guys. So
and to that point, by the way, Anthony, just for 1 second, I'm wondering whether or not the lack of side effects in the diabetic community is more important than the regular folks who are not diabetic. Are we going to see more side effects in non-diabetics than diabetics? I don't know enough science to comment, but I'm wondering if there's some connection there.
What is it going to do to the pancreas?
Exactly.
So a quick story, and maybe I'll just get feedback.
The far-flung Isles of Langerhans. No, I'm sorry.
So I know
Fireside Theater references. Oh, you're all too young.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, John. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, man.
But anyway, I know two individuals that have recently, they've gone, actually, I told John they went to a functional medicine provider, and that was a whole eye-opener for me, both good and bad, by the way. But they both started to gain weight around the time that they began SMR neurofeedback training, believe it or not. And so this is just a wild theory I'm working on. SMR that I at least other clinicians have mentioned to me, it may increase frontal slow waves. And if you look up frontal slowing, it's associated with decreased metabolism because the brain is one of the most metabolic organs in the body. I think it's tied with the liver very close. And so my advice to them, they were not doing the frontal suppression.
So the new Ozempic is delta and theta down in the frontal lobe.
Are they? I'm sorry. Please say that.
That's great. I love it. Mari, you could be onto something here.
The new Ozempic is delta and theta down in the frontal lobes or low alpha.
You've been hearing? Yeah, I wonder. Well, there was at least one paper saying it increases theta waves, but I think it was in the temples. That's the most EEG data I've seen. But that it does feel like you're getting like a frontal suppression because the cravings go. So the effect at least is what you would want. Anyway, so my advice to them was either take a break from SMR or to add the frontal suppression of the frontal slow waves that honestly they had been doing, but it had been interrupting their sleep.
Actually, Anthony, I think I have, SMR, we use it. It can be associated with agitation. People with high theta SMR actually move more. And I think what you're dealing with is a quieting, and I think it might actually be really, really simple. If you quiet the body isn't moving as much. A lot of thinner people have a higher amount of not just movement in general, but these subtle movements. What we used to call fidgeting.
Mari, do you know that there are weight loss studies on fidgeting that find that people that fidget burn anywhere from 800 to 2,000 more calories a day?
Subtle movements. I mean, if you're going to watch TV for 12 hours and literally be a blob, versus if you watch TV for 12 hours and just subtly move your foot, right?
It's sedentary. Yeah. So I'm going to investigate that. I have the study somewhere.
Sorry, I think the answer is actually really simple. That's what I'm known for. I joke, I call myself a KISS therapist. Keep it simple, silly.
But isn't Ozempic and Mounjaro going to mess up the behavioral modification angle?
Is that where we're telling people to try to
look, see, I'm playing with a paperclip.
What do you mean by that, Pete? I couldn't hear the joke. Sorry.
No, it's not even really a joke. It's with, talk therapy. It's behavior modification. If you can, why do you have to think about it if you take the shot? I guess that would screw up the talk therapist. I don't know.
Exactly.
That's the whole history of medications right there in a nutshell. Prozac, Xanax, you name it. I don't have to talk about anything.
If that is the retort from a lot of healthcare practitioners, well, why don't they just diet and exercise? And it's kind of like, look, if one person has a problem, it's a behavioral problem. If a whole society has a problem, it's now a public health problem. And we need to do something, probably.
Well, I mean, I think we all know. I mean, we're having a bit of fun here, but I think all of us would unilaterally agree it's a multifactorial problem, right?
Okay.
And I think it started in the U.S. and it's contagious. Yeah, and lifestyles, nutrition, stress, all kinds of things are going on.
What are you talking about? You Canadians up there with your Tim Hortons and your Moosehead beers? Come on.
Doesn't it started in the U.S.? Yeah. Well, I mean, you're referencing Sweden and whatnot. I mean, northern peoples are known for their long, thin body structures. And over the past few years, you're actually starting to see the average weight go up in Nordic countries as well, right? It's, again, the U.S. are leaders on many good things, but you're also leaders on a few bad ones.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So we got to look at the food again?
Yeah, I bet you there's a strong correlation to McDonald's franchises opening in Oslo.
Yeah.
How funny.
With Orange Man serving fries?
Oh, good one.
Oh my God.
Take the bait, John. Take the bait.
Oh no. Listen, he's got his prison job already lined up.
Hey,
so funny.
Of orange.
Hey, Anthony, take care of Ben.
Yeah, he's saying, I think it's pretty telling that the obesity, my computer's messing up. The research data came out of an obesity clinic first. Hold on.
ACEs data.
ACEs data. Okay, ACEs makes me think of adverse childhood experiences, but I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think.
Some say it's okay. Some say it's less an obesity epidemic and more a trauma epidemic. That's interesting. So I will tell you. So trauma, the incidence of addiction drastically. It's also associated with increased incidence of morbid obesity. So carry on.
Surprising.
Yeah,
I think that comment is the center point. It's trauma.
That was great.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was
came from Kaiser.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kaiser, I hear he's
he's
well,
75.
No, I'm serious.
He's 75 now.
David.
Oh, David Kaiser.
The one that's working at the escalator company. Seriously, he's trying. I swear to God, there's a podcast somewhere that I'll put in here
David
that he came
Kaiser?
on. And he's making breakthroughs and trying to get neurofeedback approved at insurance companies. And obviously, the Kaiser family out there. I'm going to put a little link in here and see if I can find it.
I don't believe he's related to those Kaisers, by the way.
He is totally related.
David Kaiser is related to the Kaiser family?
Hold on.
God,
You guys keep talking. We got 20 minutes to kill. Keep going.
Guys, real quick, on a lark, I just searched. I found a Nature paper while we were talking that says that obesity is correlated with frontal slowing. And so, speaking to Pete's point about the ACC, the anterior cingulates in the front, delta and theta are a phenotype for ADHD, but also addiction. It's one of Jay's addiction phenotypes.
Yeah. But also, I mean, as I said, I'm going back to multifactorial. I mean, just the soothing, trauma and soothing, trauma and hiding. Many females that have been victims of sexual abuse and assault, they hide their bodies within their bodies.
Would you think the excess slowing is just sort of a disconnect from accurate perception? I don't know exactly what I'm just eating. I'm just eating. In other words, I'm just consuming mindlessly without being mindful.
Television will do that.
They think there's actual atrophy. Speaking of TV shrinking your brain, but they think, John, it was a study last year that said that the brains of obese patients look similar in some ways frontally among them to dementia patients. So it's lack of activity, it's lack of connectivity in the fMRI and blood oxygen. It's the whole thing. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I was wrong. We had David Kaiser and Henry Kaiser. Henry
is the Kaiser family. Yeah.
And Henry's the one that worked. I don't know. He's got some machine that cleans the handrails and whatever. I gotta go back in time. I need some.
No, I think I remember this.
Is that how they get the orange paint off of them?
Yeah. Coming all the way back around. Coming all the way back around.
That's all right.
The memes for the Trump McDonald's thing were funny. The opponents of Trump were saying, "Oh yeah, one of the workers said he dropped the fries and just served them anyway or whatever." And then I saw some Trump people posted a meme where they said maybe the ice cream machines will finally work now, and they showed Trump with a drill like working on it or whatever.
But did you see what happened? You
spent a whole day talking about this.
Well, it's Trump derangement syndrome. Now McDonald's, all of a sudden they got botulism and getting sued, the FDA. It's just coinky dinky. I'm just saying.
So they're in trouble now.
I can't wait for this to be over. I am just.
So
I can't.
So are 5 viewers.
Circling back though to neurofeedback, I think it's probably the best answer to anything we talk about on this show. We can talk about Ozempic and obesity and all of these things. We have to get our brains in better fiddle to face the struggles of our world. Our world is complicated, yes, but it's it's more complicated than our ancestors' world was. But I think it's fully capable of handling a lot more than we think it will.
Oh, we know. I mean, we're talking about the master center of all of us, and do you want to just put a splint on the master center, or do you want to, heal the bone, get some muscle and walk on your own? I mean, Band-Aids and pills, and of course, they're all options. But also, long-term costs of just tons and tons of medications all the time versus whether it's 3 weeks or 3 years and you're done.
Yeah. And are we caught in a cultural trap in the fear of missing out thing? In other words, the explosion of information that's come at us in my lifetime, it's gone from, if you wanted to know something, you had to go to a library and read a book. Now it's at your fingertips. It explodes at you. It's pushed on you. And that is the human brain is not really built for this. So how are we going to figure out in our own brains?
There's a book on that.
It's because that's not going to because that's not going to stop. How do we figure out how to successfully accept and ignore the stuff that's coming at us? This is important. This isn't. Those are quick decisions. And in our ancestral world.
I wrote on this. I speak on this often. There's a hijacking of biology. And we have our attention spans to pay attention to very specific things. And we're just really, really being thrown all kinds of things, and we literally can't keep up. And I think that's a major source of the anxiety. Absolutely. Also in terms of what we're being taught, in terms of how much information you actually need to make a decision. Part of that whole perfectionist element. Okay. And I think that's another really, really important one in terms of neurotherapy. Perfectionism, especially in young female students, is a form of anxiety, right? And this is from, I would say, scholastic information overload. As well as, just this being bombarded with information all the time. And I think one of the things, apart from helping with the brain through neurotherapy, bringing down that over arousal, I think we also need to teach, good enough, why we don't need all this information. But that loops into the attention economy. It's not in the mega producers of content to have us disengage.
Absolutely right.
And, pick whoever thought that this would flow into school. They start you off on TikTok, and then you have a problem with not being able to collect enough information for school. I mean, it's a really interesting sociological time in that regard.
Yeah, they're going to ban, by the way, Mari, in Los Angeles, they're going to ban the use of cell phones in schools come next January.
Yeah, well, that's, it's funny. This is part of what I've been talking about recently. I think on the surface, this is really, really positive. Okay, you need a stopgap, but I'd say on the other hand, it's absolutely negative. You're restricting something. What you should be doing is teaching individuals in their youth how to use these things responsibly. Okay?
I guess my underlying question, though, Mari, is the human brain capable of learning that?
Well,
in other words, when 400 years ago, there were 6 books. You could read them all.
But okay, John, you and I and Anthony, you're a bit younger, but they're not that much younger. Definitely, when you went into a library, you went, wow, and then you chose a section, and then you went in and you narrowed. You might even have a list. It's the pace of the delivery and the enticement of it. Okay, it's not just the quantity.
Yeah,
because we always had issues with quantity. It's the pace and speed of delivery of the enticement.
Slow it down.
Of course, the algorithms, et cetera.
Guys, my clients are here. I got to go.
Well, here, real quick. Let's close it out because I hate to not have a show. With John. Let's for our show Thursday tomorrow, Dr. Marie.
Yeah.
What should we take from this show that we should work on for tomorrow? Was there anything out there? Anybody that's listening and watching now, seriously, and then we can expound into it. We want to get into the switch.
Can the human
I'd
brain?
say we want to look at brain gluttony.
Yeah. Can the human brain be trained to be less gluttonous? I love the word gluttony. That's a great word.
Oh, that's a keyword grabber.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
Pete in his never-ending search for keywords. Brain gluttony. Tune in tomorrow.
One day.
Tune in tomorrow. Because I don't know. Maybe it's biological. And it's going to take thousands of years to be able to restructure it. I don't know. I gotta go. Goodbye, you guys.
All right, everybody.
I'll see you guys.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
I want to know if Medicare under Trump is orangeade. Oh, I love you, Ben. See you next time.